has returned energized for the afternoon session. So this session is on freight corridors and industrial connectivity, MMLPs, private terminal opportunities, the role of railways in freight. Now, rail is approximately 27% of all freight traffic in the country, and India still relies on roads for the majority of its freight, even though rail is significantly cheaper per ton kilometers. Now, there have been a lot of developments in the last few years which have significantly expanded the coverage of freight through rail. Dedicated freight corridors, for example, several MMLPs, industrial link corridors. But still, there is a lot of untapped potential in the country to expand this coverage further. So, if I may ask, Sir, Shri Sagar Kadu first, in terms of the vision, the government's vision for expanding rail infrastructure to support freight and industrial traffic, what is the vision looking like, and to what extent do you see private sector participation as forming a part of delivering that vision?
Right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So when we talk about the vision or where to invest, because when we talk about the overall cargo movement, all the three sectors are important for us, be it the road sector or the coastal sectors or the railway sectors. We are moving ahead of the conventional method to look at this any one sectors in a priority as such. When we talk about the PM GatiShakti or National Logistics Policy, all the three sectors we are moving and we are working together in an integrated manner. The more focus is to create more uh, capital or the capital incentive infrastructure, multimodal infrastructure, be it a road sector or rail sector. And when we are talking about the growth appetite of the overall Indian Vision 2030 or 2047, we are looking at the cargo movement of 30 million metric ton or overall 30 trillion economy size. So for that, we need definitely a large investment in all the three sectors. Now the focus is more towards of the integrated development. Earlier we know we have been talking these the silos and all these things, but now actually when we are developing any rail infrastructure, we are primarily looking after the first and the last mile connectivity necessarily. We are working how the transfer of the goods from one mode to different mode is how it is well oiled, less frictionless. That is very important. And when we have done the logistics cost study, as you said, the rail sector is primarily economical in the longer haul, but we have seen the cargo sees it differently. Even in the longer haul, the road is being preferred in spite of the little higher cost, because we have a more visibility, we have the more reliability. So same that visibility and reliability we are trying to work in the integrated manner when we will be moving the cargo.
Thank you, sir. That's an ambitious target, and there's a lot of freight traffic that needs to be developed along that ride. If I can just stay with you, sir, for a second. Private investment is, of course, a key part. Um, but how, in what manner do we see private participation? So, of course, one way is asset creation, relaying down the line, constructing it, maintenance of those assets. Right? The other, much more sort of complex part is train operation. That's not confined to a single stretch. It is not confined to, a easily carve outable section of the rail. Right? So, would you, are there any thoughts on how, in what manner the private players can assist? So, if I take the example of, let us say, roads, which is the, there it is slightly different because you have a stretch of road, you have a toll notification on the basis of that. So you have the ability to give out a full concession for construction, operation, maintenance, toll collection, where the private party kind of recovers their capex through toll. That's slightly it's not so easily translatable into rail. So in that sense, I think, and I agree, this is a bit of an open question in that I think these are things that are still developing, they're still being thought out. But if any, you have any initial thoughts on the manner in which the private sector would, what is the best use of the private sector as a partner?
See, right. Again, I'll say when we see the private sector participations, we have started it long back. Concor was there, but even the EXIM container movement we see, primarily there are 18 private companies who are moving the cargo, who are from the trade to everything. It's being mostly the EXIM trade, containerized trade. There is a lot of private participations. Now, when we are again working towards, while the railway officials, authorities who are joining us, they'll detail, give the answer on this. But when I'm trying to answer it from the cargo operation point of view, that is what we are looking majorly the domestic, be it the MMLPs or these GatiShakti terminals, which we are coming up, under the GatiShakti framework. That is morely purely under PPP framework, where more of the private participations from the building the trunk infrastructures to towards the operating the cargo is being primarily envisaged through a private partnerships. The technical matters or the creation of the infrastructures, that definitely will hear from the sirs. He's joining soon as. So that is what the overall vision.
No, thank you, sir. And I think you had mentioned also the Gati Shakti platform, and the need to integrate. What are the different requirements across different departments, different states, because this is an extremely integrated way in which.
Means it, I would like to clarify more. When we are planning this infrastructure now, the approach, seeing the cargo being the focus, that is being a primary change or the objective of the government under the PM Gati Shakti or the national logistics policy. How the cargo to be facilitated, that's the core objective. Then creation of the infrastructure is definitely secondary thing. For the railway, definitely there are two aspects: passenger and cargo. So I'll stick my opinion only towards the cargo. When now we're planning any infrastructure, be it a road, Bharatmala project, or any port, the primary objective, how all these modes are connected to each other, what is the first mile, last mile, what are the stakeholders involved. So even when the any doubling project or quadrupling or tripling railway projects comes, or they in parallel there is some highways coming up, we do try to do a detailed analysis how the freight will be moving, what is the cargo appetite. We do consult the states department. We call them in the meeting, in the very first meetings, which is we call the network planning group meeting, and each project is heard from the different stakeholders. It's not only the government is now working, definitely the project proponent and the DPRs are being formed, but each project is being reviewed from the nearest industrial nodes connectivity. Is there a sufficient road capacity, because the rail capacity is gonna to be double with the brownfield expansion. So are we increasing the road connectivity? Is there sufficient connectivity handling facilities at the stations or any economic nodes, even for that matter the passenger station? So these aspects are being looked into the integrated manner. We call every meeting, these kinds of meeting, the state representatives are there, different ministries are participating, be it the environment or power for that matter. So all projects are being looked holistically. We are trying to remove the silos. Definitely there will be, but we are trying to remove as much as the first level. We try to see what could be the problems which could arrive in a due course. So that are being addressed at the very first level.
Yes, and absolutely, as you mentioned, that is a massive exercise because you have to coordinate across so many different stakeholders. May I also do a follow up to Dr. Chintala? The in your experience, the Gati Shakti platform, which was created, also, I mean, it was exactly to address this kind of integrated planning, right? Would you could you share your sort of experience on how it's working, what are bottlenecks, in terms of integrating so many different stakeholders at the initial planning phase?
Yeah. Good afternoon, one and all. Definitely, PM Gati Shakti is one of the biggest national master plan with 100 lakh crore rupees. Before PM Gati Shakti implementation launched in way back in 2021, every ministry, every department was working in silos. It was a mode centric approach. Now it is a network centric approach. It was individual planning, individual platforms are being used by every ministry. Now it is dramatically changed. Togetherness is coming. All ministries, all department, all decision makers, policy makers are coming on one platform. So PM Gati Shakti tremendously working, and it is giving a successful results uh, in terms of planning. Uh, the unified platform that has been made is significantly changing the entire scenario, infrastructure development scenario. So planning is done by PM Gati Shakti uh, with a success rate at higher rates. However, we do see some execution defaulters. Only planning will not give the success. Planning without synchronized execution of the projects will develop many future bottlenecks that has to be addressed. Thank you.
And sir, in your view, what is the pathway to that better execution? Because as you correctly said, when you're planning it, you need rail connectivity, road access, utility infrastructure, and if you one part of it gets delayed, then the entire movement gets
Right.
delayed. So, just in terms of what do we need to do for better execution of that planning, sir, in
Yeah.
your view?
We got success as of now, planning and development. When it comes to execution, definitely every department has to come to one platform and coordination has to be happening. So the now great challenges is interagency coordination. Every government entity has its own procedures. They will not come out of their procedures. Maybe coming on the common platform, coming on the common idea, and adjusting to their policies and rules is a big bottleneck that we are seeing now. So if the PM Gati Shakti has to get 100% success even in execution level, so I prefer that all the government entities, ministries, departments should come on the single platform in execution. Secondly, a progress dashboard has to be created. I could say PM Gati Shakti 2.0, which may cater for the execution challenges and real-time monitoring of the projects which are having a high value in nature is to be taken care. This is the pathway that we need to follow. I do represent Gati Shakti Vishwavidyalaya, um, the organization which develops talent resource pool, the organization which develops a skilled workforce at leadership level and then at technical level. So this workforce has to be get ready. If the workforce, the officers, the policymakers are not aware of the platform that we have, unified platform we have, the facilities that we have, and the efforts that we need to keep in put up in that platform based on the platform. If you are not aware, then we cannot utilize the tool for its best use. Suppose if I have mobile, if I don't know the operation of the mobile, for me it is just a dummy, as it was developed with well intentions. So people has to be aware. So in this context, GSV is organizing various levels of training modules. Just for instance, we have developed a 15 hours course on PM Gati Shakti for efficient infrastructure planning and development, which was available in I Got Karmayogi. And as of now, almost 2,30,000 plus officers have gone through that course, which gives the success rate, how they are getting the information, how the tool has to be utilized, and how it can be implemented while execution level. So another significant milestone being the university that we did, we have developed the course on PM GatiShakti, which is mandated for all workforce that pass through the university, whether it could be railway officers, it could be defense officers, and it could be generic students, whoever may be. They are right from the initial stage, they will go through the PM Gati Shakti module and the elements that are there, the facilities that are there. So if you are coordinating interagency departmental activities and then bringing awareness at a higher level, definitely we will be success even in execution level also. Thank you.
And so, if I may make and I'm addressing this question to all the panelists, if I may make a bold suggestion, does it make sense to have a single agency and with the corresponding regulatory backing and framework to carry out execution across sectors when we are talking about freight movement? So currently, I know it's falling between different ministries, also different states. Um, would you think a sort of a regulatory change which brings this all when we're talking about freight movement within a single body, a single organization with the ability to go and do the tenders for all associated aspects of it? Do you think that is something like that makes sense, or is that maybe too much of a departure? And I'm addressing it to all, so whoever, if anyone has
Definitely, within the ministry, within the department, among the offices also coordination is required. If the offices within the ministry are not coordinated, then the purpose will not be solved. Definitely unified coordinations on one common purpose is to be our target. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, in fact, theoretically, it looks very good. It could be a wish list for every planning process or every country for that matter. But the massive scale in which the country like India we're operating and the thrust we are having, that could be operationally or at the execution level or at the ministry level will be very difficult to start ahead. But let us start something in an integrated, at least planning can be done in an integrated manner. So that is the first thing we need to do. What you are asking is definitely a second step or the third step. At the tendering level or the execution level, we'll be moving ahead into that. But let us start with the integrated planning. Let us understand each other. Let us understand what is the requirement of the cargo. So unlike when we compare generally in all the forums, road and rail, the advantage for the cargo, the road sector reaches to the door of the cargo, like trucks. Now we are working, why can't we create a hubs, like MMLPs? It's like taking the railway to the doorstep of the cargo, because it's a cluster of 200 hectares area with the NICDC nodes we are working on, or the Bhavya scheme where we are working on the integrated parks. So the cargo is, now what is happening in India currently, the warehouses are scattered, so different. One is on the east, north, south. We do not know where are warehouses or the godowns or so called. For the industrial clusters also, industries also so scattered. They are manufacturing goods at one point, they are storing for a transit warehouse which is 20 kilometers away. So when we work on the industrial nodes, that will have a temporary storage area, there will have a rail connectivity inside that industrial nodes. MMLPs, when we are working on the 35U or other railway, now we are working on an integrated panel planning of the MMLPs also, taking along the states also. So MMLP, like ICD is collecting all the exempt cargo, moving it to the port. So why can't same model be worked in for the domestic cargo? Because now it is very both multimodal aspect or economy not feasible to come all the cargo by road, travel 50 kilometers, then move on the road. So create these hubs, and then hub and spoke arrangements can be utilized. So yes.
So we were discussing, what it will take for rail to realize its full freight potential, And we were discussing at the moment how the PM Gati Shakti platform has helped so much in doing better integrated planning. We were discussing what is the what may be the challenges on execution, because planning is one part, but a multimodal integrated project has to be carried out through different ministries, different states even. So in terms of going from that cohesive planning to cohesive execution and deliveries, what would it take? If your thoughts would be also very welcome.
Planning is definitely, it requires lots of objective thinking and lots of data crunching, and before that comes a lot of data sourcing, right? So good that we have now already developed a very good mechanism. I would not say just a platform, but a very good mechanism, which is from the point start or from a very initial stage of planning to the final execution, has been established and has been made so objective, completely data based. So it has data, it has the mechanism for using that data, collating that data, and then basis that data, making a very holistic and integrated plans. Now, once the plans have been made, again, they have to be executed in a similar manner with a similar spirit. So again, the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan platform and the mechanism which has been there in place has also, created thinking in the minds of the people involved in the execution as well. And the execution, the team is also involved in planning through, supplementing of data by them. And then when the things are being planned, the execution team is also coming to know about what's happening, right? So they are getting kind of prepared. And then the basic philosophy, which is again instilled in the minds of, you can say, the entire ecosystem, which is into developing infrastructure or planning infrastructure, is that we have to be thinking in an integrated manner. We have to be thinking a comprehensive planning and comprehensive execution of the plans also in a most comprehensive way. And finally, to arrive a set of infrastructure which is well connected, interconnected within those different types of infrastructures, and also connected to the market, right? The entire supply chain gets connected, right? And that's what the spirit of multimodal transportation is all about. And that is also about efficient logistics ecosystem as well, which can actually attain the lesser logistics cost or reduction in the logistics cost in the country. This has been really happening very well. And coming from my earlier assignment, and Mr. Sagar would bear me out, the planning per se has definitely improved. And we have been seeing the early signs of efficient execution also. Now, by now, we must have had lots of projects which have come into being. And now the responsibility comes onto the shoulders of operators, right? So operators are the smarter, segment of the entire ecosystem of logistics. They can find, operational solution to even infrastructure problems. Nowadays, in a situation where infrastructure deficit or infrastructure problems are of a lesser nature or lesser intensity, they are having even greater opportunity. So the smarter Alex in the so-called operation side, they're having now greater opportunity to experiment and to exploit this opportunity which is available now in terms of availability of infrastructure. I think there lies the kind of focus now. And the focus, when I say, it is in terms of creating right business models. And before coming to this place, we were having a very important meeting, as I was telling one of my colleague, and incidentally, Mr. Vijay was there with me as well. And the discussion was about the changing business plans, business models as such. You must be having a particular impression about even railways, that is a rigid freight structure, right? and not very, adaptive to the market, responsive to the market situation. All those things are now being thought about. And the so-called operators of logistics are thinking very seriously about, adapting to a newer situation which has risen or which is developed, and just not adapting to what is a given situation or present, but also looking forward into the future and instilling that dynamism in the operations as well. So whether it is related to the operation, related to the commercials of that business plan, everything is being thought about, and the buzzword is transformation. And transformation comes through reforms. So that's what is going on. And I think you would see very soon the culture is changing in the logistic ecosystem. So that's the same spirit which I started with, the GatiShakti spirit of integrated planning, integrated development, multimodal infrastructure, logistics efficiency through multimodal infrastructure, multimodal transportation is probably going to be realized very soon.
And so if I can just ask one quick follow-up on that.
Yeah.
You mentioned how the operators, are key to this transformation. And also the fact that, there's a shift, not a shift, but a thought process now around rigid freight structures. Because that is something that has been discussed for some time, right?
Mhm.
In that if you can make a freight structure commensurate with, let's say, potentially the capital cost of a particular segment or a particular corridor. Do you think that is a feasible or a reasonable thought process, or is that something?
See, logistics sector or the transportation corridors, I would say they're the secondary services, right? If I classify all the service of the products, what is the primary? The production. So we are connecting the point of production or the producer to the point of consumption and the consumer, right? And therefore, we should be looking towards the primary, which is our customer, right? If we are representing the transport sector, logistics sector. So if I try to make myself as primary, and the market should become, centered around me, means the logistics, I think we are adopting a wrong philosophy. So I personally feel it's not the corridors of logistics or transportation corridors, but corridors of economy, economic corridors, which is more holistic and, kind of a realistic definition of the corridor. And accordingly, what's happening, when we plan for DFC, maybe more than 2 decades now before, the industrial corridor development corporation was also constituted a little later than that. However, it came around development of DFC. So there is a combination of, do we have NICDC also represented? Are you there? Right. So the NICDC corridors, we started planning on that, and they are again planned along the dedicated freight corridor of the railways. So this dedicated freight corridor is going to get life from the industrial corridor which is planned along it, right? Now, what we still have to do probably, we are still thinking about it, and GatiShakti National Master Plan again been acting as a catalyst to ensure that there is a complete connectivity. When I say complete, means in terms of capacity of infrastructure, in terms of the intensity of connectivity, right? We are trying to ensure that every industrial cluster gets an access to the dedicated freight corridor. At present, the dedicated freight corridor has not planned many, entries or exit points for it, or maybe the terminus to say specifically. Now it's being thought about. The branch lines may be emanating from the dedicated freight corridor or maybe the conventional existing IR network, and they would be connecting the industrial corridors or industrial clusters, right? And this connectivity is further going to be enhanced by the container train operators, right? Like my colleague Vijay, representing Concor, they're also working on bringing about a partnership or maybe integration of transportation corridor called DFC, NICDC corridor of NICDC, right? Industrial corridor. And then this is a multimodal transportation service which the container train operators are going to give. If these three entities and these three so-called the subsectors or sectors of this entire supply chain comes together, I see a tango there, right? And I think we can get best out of the dedicated freight corridor, which is a huge capital investment of this country, right? And similarly, we are investing a lot in development of industrial corridor. I think we can get best out of the situation.
Thanks. So, and if I may come to Shri Alawat also, in terms of the industrial link corridors. I mean, what has been your experience so far in obtaining that connectivity, and what lessons can be sort of drawn for the future, for future planning and implementation?
Well, you've already referred to other speakers alluding to the name of my company. To put things in perspective, firstly, I would like to tell the audience what is this company that I'm representing, what do we do, and thereafter you will understand what our experience is when I cover it. But before that, I'll take a little bit on the question that had come up, where is there a scope for somebody, one entity handling the entire freight or logistics? Well, we are already doing a bit of it in form of the unified logistic interface platform. I'll cover that. We get logistic related data sets from every ministry, which has anything to do with logistics at all. It is like, we are the UPI of the logistics sector. So we get, Railways has been most magnanimous. We get the complete voice data, and we are supporting other ministries. Like we have made a dashboard for the coal ministry to track every bit of coal. Today, the Koila Mantri can, sitting on his desk, see every bit of coal moving by road, rail, ships, import, export, retail sales, power plant, thermal plant, wherever it is being used, totally powered by ULIP. All data being given to us free of cost by all the nodal ministries concerned. So today we have data sets of 12 to 13 such ministries. So in this regard, a beginning has already been made. I leave this question here. Well, I represent the National Industrial Corridor Development Corporation. It is an entity, we work under the DPIT. So we are part of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. It is headed by a serving IAS officer always. We are the people who are developing greenfield industrial townships. You would have heard things like Auric or Dolera. More people will know Dolera. Our company is actually a manifestation of whatever you heard the other speakers speaking. It is actually a true manifestation, true result of the whole of government approach in implementation. And how does it happen? We are we have 12 industrial corridors already on. We are working on that. They are going on for certain years, as Mr. Ahirwar had brought out. We have very recently launched the Bhavya scheme, where we are in phases going to develop 100 new industrial parks. It will be in challenge mode, and the scheme is already out. The first 20, then another 30, and then another 30. So this phasing is basically to learn from the experience of the initial ones. These bids are already open. Basically, it is the states who have to choose the clusters where they want the industrial things to come up, and we will be then deciding. We means the ministry will be deciding as to who will get these clusters. We are also working on rejuvenating 200 industrial clusters, old legacy industrial clusters. They have lots of problems. Some of them are legacy. Some of them were created by individuals. Some of them were created by government sponsorship. But they are facing a lot of problems. To rejuvenate that, we are working on, and this scheme will be out. We are also now, as announced in the latest budget, working on developing 5 regional medical hubs. So once this scheme is out, 5 major regional hubs, medical related hubs will come up, basically with a view to boost medical value tourism. In addition to that, we have a logistics data entity. We are the people who monitor 100% of the EXIM container movement. So today you can free of cost track a container. Moment it enters India from any port anywhere, we just put a tag, track its journey completely throughout the hinterland. So as on date, we have covered most of the national highways. We are now venturing into state highways. Of course, the ports are 100% covered. And we are gradually moving into industrial zones and special economic zones and like. Thereafter, so this is the product that we call Logistic Data Bank. It is actually for container tracking. We have now covered, we have gone on to sea with the hinterland completely mapped almost. We have ventured into sea, and gradually we are also going to link the land ports as well as venture into air, though there is limited container movement in air. And thereafter, we have the unified logistic interface platform, which came up, it was launched on the same day when the national logistic policy was launched by the Prime Minister himself, with this realization that there should be a single entity which should be controlling the complete logistic, at least somewhere. So we are contributing our bit there. Now coming to the question specific as to what has been our experience. One word, positive. Now, why do I say positive? Well, as Mr. Ayerwar had alluded earlier, the very inception of our company, the word corridor is there in our name. To begin with, it came up after a lot of planning. It was not one ministry planning it. It came up as a result of multiple ministries getting involved in the creation of this. The greenfield industrial parks coming up, they are completely aligned with the industrial, with the physical road and rail and the ports infrastructure in the country. And this is how they came up. So all these industrial parks, industrial corridors that we have said, the main one being, it started with the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. It was actually a Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor Development Corporation, which is today the company called NICDC. Then you have Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Amritsar, Kolkata, Delhi, Aurangabad, and such like that. So these are the industrial corridors. They are all aligned with the rail corridors, the eastern, western dedicated freight corridors, and the national road infrastructure which is coming up. Our experience has been that the infrastructure has moved faster than the industrial growth. This is one part. The infrastructure has actually taken off. Road, you all keep hearing, and railways is here. If somebody had invited a speaker like me 7-10 years back for a railway entity inviting me for a lecture, the industrial corridor guy, it would have been a surprise. Today it is a norm. It is a norm. So our presence here itself shows the whole of government approach. The railways is equally concerned about the industrial growth as we are concerned about optimum utilization of the railway resources. So this is the end result. And so is our interfacing with the ports. So we have physical presence with 5,000 odd readers being deployed at the ports. Our teams are physically there. So with this kind of functioning where 12 to 13 ministries handling logistic related issues are cooperating on a day-to-day basis at the operational level, well, things can't be better. So obviously it is all positive. What has it led to? Well, if the rail and the road and the industry guys are thinking together, obviously more and more logistic entities, people who are planning to build warehouses, who are wanting to put up small transport companies, logistic entities of various kinds, and also in the digital phase, small players, small people are using our data sets free of cost to compete with very big transporters and logistic companies. So the whole ecosystem is actually very vibrant, and the railways is playing a very major role. And we as a company are grateful to the railways for being, very proactive in supporting us in all our ventures. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That was very enlightening. May I come to Sri Vijay Singh? And may I ask you a specific question on port rail integration? On port and rail integration, there are multiple programs already on it, but I think particularly for some smaller ports, there is still a gap on last mile connectivity. So what intervention would you think is most required to build that last mile connectivity, and in what manner can we go such that it has the highest impact on, say, export import competitiveness in the near run? Your thoughts, sir?
Thank you. First of all, I extend my sincere thanks to the organizer for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to represent Container Corporation of India Limited, that is CONCOR, here in this forum. I also heard very patiently the wisdom and the views of our esteemed panelists. My name is Vijay Kumar Singh. I represent CONCOR as Director International Marketing and Operations. And coming first directly to the questions of the moderator, that port connectivity. Before that, to support this question, the query, I must share here, and I think we all know that Concor, being a PSU of Railway Ministry, we do the work of transporting containers from one place to another place. So 95% of our container transportation is by rail. So that is the big thing as far as rail movement is concerned. And as far as the question is port connectivity from the hinterland, ICDs and all, out of our business basket, around 75% of our business in terms of volume or say finance is in the international business, in the export and import. That way we can understand that what is the importance of ports for us. Ports are very dear to us. That's why what we have done, that almost for all the major ports, we have our CFSs, container freight station, located near the ports. That is number one. And another thing that we also ensure that whenever a container is getting booked in an ICD, be the lead average is around 700 kilometers. So how fast we connect to that port, and with the service delivery at the CFS or directly into the port, that is getting ensured. Because we are aware as Concor, who is the end-to-end service, logistic service delivery entity, that transit assurance is very, very important in any logistic business. So let's say, I'll cite an example of Western Dedicated Freight Corridor, because it has, revolutionized the movement of container traffic in India. Earlier, from Dadri to Mundra port, the time used to be taken around 70 hours or so. Now with the DFC and our connectivity and the transportation solutions we provide, it is now the rail portion is around 30 to 40 hours. Now, the question is, there could be first mile too. So that first mile, what we have done, that we have our own service of first mile, last mile. We short in call, we FMLM service, first mile and last mile service. So we pick up by our own trailers or with the trailers of our partners, with whom we are in agreement, right at the premises of the commodity developer, the producer, and we ensure that the cargo is delivered at the port. So with this kind of arrangement, we ensure that from this land part is concerned, from the industry point to the port, the transit assurance is really executed and our connectivity is ensured. Apart from that, I think it would be nice to say that we also are very keen to look for the locations where our presence should be there in terms of terminals or CRTs or ECRTs. Thanks to Indian Railways, that with their cooperation, we have now many CRTs and ECRTs apart from our 68 odd terminals. So with these networks and connectivity, we do not want to let any cargo or any trader not feeling unconnected with the port. So this is how we ensure the connectivity and ensuring the fast transit. This is how I would say.
In terms of driving the sort of investment in the infrastructure for throughout the supply chain, what role do you see sort of specific industry play? So, for example, Maruti Suzuki just had the largest sort of multimodal cargo terminal, and they are obviously it benefits them in terms of connectivity for them. How far do you see industry playing that role? And also, if I may add on to that, do you think, say, public sector enterprises who require significant connectivity, let's say on steel or coal, I mean, to what extent do you see them playing a more enhanced role in actually developing the infrastructure as well? Is that part of the potential vision for?
On that front, I would say there's a huge amount of activities which are going on, a lot of action there. But just to add what Mr. Vijay was mentioning about and the question of yours, the rail port connectivity, just to inform you all and maybe a reason for reassurance, Railways have already initiated a mega project of connecting rail network with ports. We are already though connected, but to improve that connectivity, maybe in terms of the capacity, in terms of addition of lines, or in addition, in connecting the newer ports or smaller ports which do not have the connectivity as such, even for such ports which have not been commissioned as yet. And this mega project is called Rail Saga project, wherein we have identified around 24 or 25 odd major projects within that basket of projects. And the railway is going to spend about maybe in next 4 or 5 years about 1 lakh of crores or maybe 2 lakh crores on that. So that's going on, and in this we have also seen the participation of the private sector. Many of these projects are planned to be implemented through PPP, right? And railways have been having the PPP policy, which is very hugely focused for enhancing the connectivity to the ports of the railway network. So that's definitely going on. And further, what I personally feel, again, basis my experience of the logistics sector the last couple of years, what is holding back attaining the logistics efficiency or a seamless multimodality in India is, I call it, intermodal infrastructure or inter-network infrastructure, which becomes the critical infrastructure. Let me tell you, suppose I take example of parcels in railways, right, which we call express cargo outside railways. We compare with the road, the cost or logistics cost of a parcel cargo with the railways. It is like, in a broader terms, if you go by road, it is 9.5 rupees per ton kilometer, right? The same on the railway side is around 12 rupees per ton kilometer. Now, the important point which I want to make now is the railway transportation per se constitute only 4 rupees out of this 12 rupees 30 or 50 paisa, right? So cheap is the railway transportation. Then what makes it so expensive? Just the terminals. The intermodal infrastructure, when the cargo is shifting from rail to road, I have all sort of problems there. Unloading from the railways, handling it at the terminal, managing at the terminal, exiting from the terminal, traversing through the Delhi congested roads again, and reaching up to the shop, our own shop or the workshop. I'm really tired, right? I've spent a lot of energy. Out of the 1230 rupees or 1250 rupees which I've spent 8 rupees 50 paisa on just this, right? So more than 70%, or it makes around, right, 30, yeah, around 70%, more than 70% of energy spent out here. And this is just because lack of proper, inadequate infrastructure at the railway terminals. And then again, that first mile, last mile connectivity, you would very well realize, when you must have had, everybody must have had an experience of going to New Delhi railway station. Is it so easy to access New Delhi railway station, even for catching a Rajdhani train? Or is it even easier to even go to a parcel terminal? If anybody of you has gone to the parcel terminal, you would have not even imagined going to that parcel terminal because it is not as good or as accessible, right? And this is just because there is lack of that intermodal infrastructure. I do not know whose responsibility is this. Railway says we have done within our own land boundaries whatever infrastructure we can develop. And the state government, which lies beyond the railway boundary, also thinks they have done it as well. There's a road, fine. But who cares whether this road is commonly used for city traffic, for parcel traffic, for passenger traffic of New Delhi railway station? Now, there has to be somebody who can think about, comprehensively, holistically, what needs to be done here. And this I call as intermodal, internetwork infrastructure. And this requires actually investment. And not necessarily the public expenditure here. It is the private investment or the PPP which can actually help the situation. And now railways have very well realized this thing. Therefore, we are today, again, we were having a discussion on this reform as well to, encourage private participation in upgrading the railway terminals and operating them also. So it's a kind of a, to an extent, in a way, certain ways, it's a landlord model, which is going to finally prevail like you have in the ports or in the airports, right? And that is going to enhance your first mile and last mile and ease of multimodal or intermodal transfers, and therefore the efficiency. So herein, there's a big role of the private sector. There's a big role of private investment. And once this critical investment is done, I think you would start feeling that we have started getting benefits of major network investments which we have done, like DFC or even Concor or Konkan Railway Corporation or whatever big infrastructure investments we are doing. I think that's what the critical point is.
Thank you, sir. I think we're coming towards the end of our time. You in fact preempted what was going to be my closing question, which was, what's the single most important institutional or structural reform that we need to really push cargo transport? I'd also throw it open to the rest of the panel if any thoughts on what is in your mind the single most important sort of reform that needs to take place. And I know everyone comes from a slightly different point of view within the entire ecosystem. So please feel free to tailor your response to your own organization and your own view of the ecosystem.
Definitely, as sir was mentioning, connecting networks, connecting dots itself a major challenge. Even if you observe the panelists, everyone is having legacy of their own organization. We all introduced our organization and then discussing into the questions. So, in one word, if I would like to say, organized, synchronized, integrated execution brings the success for entire ecosystem, holistic development.
Just when we are talking about the vision, India vision, Vikasit Bharat Vision 2047, the most important thing in my opinion is how we see the vision of vision, how we now see the vision, how we plan, how we execute the things. That is what is being important. And we are learning this in the governance also. So governance is changing, and in the coming years, possibly we can see the approach, create infrastructure. Now we are saying what is the need of the cargo, how the cargo should be facilitated. I think that's vision is changing. So vision towards the vision 47, and how then from the top level to the ground level, operational level, how that percolates. I think that is most important thing going forward to achieve.
Here I would say that since we are in the railway ministry, so we are in touch with as far as so many policy changes which suits the trade, and that way service delivery is better. Two things are important. One, for today's discussion here right now, what I would like to suggest here, that intermodality is an area where all modes and all the players must work not only together but in harmony. That is very important also to bring down the logistic cost. However, I feel that as far as Indian transportation system is concerned, Indian Railways, as you asked, that may play a big role, big brother role, as far as bringing bringing all the modes and all the players together on the one platform. And I think, and we all know that railway is doing their job. They have done this GatiShakti terminals. Just now in the first half, we were together. How in railways will be making changes, requisite changes in the policy, that the private participation and the players will be encouraged to contribute more in that. Second thing I would discuss that as far as logistic player, we feel in any logistic business, whatever with the modality, 4 models, 5 modes, 3 modes, 7 modes, two things are very important. One is time sensitiveness, another is cost sensitiveness. So this time sensitivity, railways, as we all know, 95% our transportation is by rail only. The mobility and reaching the cargo or the container in time, how, that is a big thing. And I think their railway is doing something, we expect many more. Another thing that there's a cost part. You could be time sensitive and assured transit is there, but it is not fitting in their bill. Then something is there to look into. So again, some policy changes or some guidance must be for the trade, that how together we bring down the logistic cost. So in that part also we must all together, and railway has a huge role to play. Thank you.
So in fact, we have some time just to add one practical scenario, sir. 3 months back, we were discussing the modal share railway as an option, but the recent West Asia crisis has taught us the energy importance. I think the time has come to move that give importance railway what is required. So one again important factors we were discussing last week, sir, we are facing some shortage of the truck drivers across India, and some ports also facing a problem. So now we can't rely on purely on the road sector. Even for the short movements, the movement from the port to nearest CFS or ICDs, we are facing that issue, and that's the practical problem. So what we need to rely purely on the road as the reliable, the shortest, or now we need to that sustainable is the necessity, resilience is the necessity. So we need to strengthen this sector also. Now we have to work on some out of the box situations. Now the trucks used to go to the door. Now how can we take that rail to the door? We can't take the rail to the door, so make a clusters of the cargo like ICDs. I think that's the way we need to go ahead, and we need to think it seriously. That's a practical problem we are facing in one of the port, and we do not have the immediate solution on that. We have the trucks available, but we do not have the people to run it, and we do not have the rail infrastructure even to move that cargo. So now we are thinking how to create that infrastructure in a short time. Miss Concord is there, they are struggling to know how to take the cargo from port to CFS. We have a single line, and 30 trains are running on a one day. They do not have, it takes 5 days. So it's now a dire need. It's not just for the sake of discussion, panel discussion.
I can understand the pain, and the pain is so intense. I can definitely understand. And let me tell you, the solution lies in the box, right? If the trucks do not move at a particular point of time, sometimes the rail does not move, the box still can move, even if one of the mode of transport is moving, right? So this switchability, the intermodal transferability, as I alluded earlier also, is the solution to this problem. Now, this adaptability of the cargo to switch from one mode to another mode can best be attained through the most efficient invention of the humanity in the cargo sector, that's the container, right? And the state of containerization in this country is just not more than 10%. We'll have to think why it is not so much containerized, because we have been considering containerization as a very high value service. And therefore, we have been tending to realize much higher value than what it is assessed as a valuable thing. And as a result, it has not become very popular. Any other developed economy, even the developing economies, which are on a relatively higher scale, maybe lesser than us, they have much higher containerization of cargo, right? And this non-containerization state is largely attributed to just not container operators, which are actually not container train operators, only container operators I'm saying, but also to the transportation segment, like the railway transporters or the road transporters. They have not encouraged containerization. because they have been charging container transportation at a much higher rate than a non-containerized cargo. Right. This we have realized, and now we are undertaking entire freight structure. At least railways have started undertaking a transformation of or reforms in the freight structure. In fact, the last 2 months we have been working on reforming the entire container sector. Now, railway has taken this responsibility to reform the entire container sector of the country, just not railway sector. So even if Mr. Vijay says that 95% of the containers of Concor are being moved by railways, I may not be as happy as he might expect, right? I would be happier if it is coming down to 50 or 60 or 70%, but the containerization of the country goes from 10% to 25%. Right. And I won't be, worried if there's a more share of road than the railways. Doesn't matter. But if the containerization happens, the switchability is definitely ensured, and which reduces the logistics cost and increases the efficiency of logistics. Right? And for this reason alone, we have been trying to, do anything which is required today for reforming the sector. A short transit, guaranteed transit is being now given to container companies. One by one, we have identified routes initially, a limited number of routes, then it is going to be extended to every other route progressively. So a short transit is going to be there. Then the rate structure, it's like this. We have been saying, the railways, that we have a good share or good modal share on a long distance transportation, maybe beyond 500 kilometers. And we have been encouraging for ages the long distance transportation by incentivizing in form of the lower rate structure. And on other side, the other side of the picture is that we have been almost prohibitive in terms of the rate structure for short distance transportation. And what is our short distance? Less than 500 kilometers is a short distance, a technical definition. However, in course of time, during last maybe 30 or 40 years, our average lead, which used to be 1,000 plus kilometers, has come down to less than 500 kilometers. So de facto, we have also become the short lead transporters. And our rate structure remains as prohibitive. We are correcting that now. And we have done, as an experiment during last 2-3 months, for 3 commodities, automobile, salt, and the bulk cement in container, we have seen a tremendous results. 100% increase, right, in transportation by railways for distance less than 500 kilometers, because we have righted the structure. And the revenues have also increased. So this experiment, learning from this experiment, we are extending this particular, new model, I can say the business model, new business model, to other commodities as well. And I think lots of, grievances, lots of, the pain would be relieved from this intervention. And railways are highly poised to undertake this and take it forward.
I do agree with Mr. Sagar, as he was raising another major concern of people. Trucks are there, people are not there to operate. Trains are there, people are not there to operate. If infrastructure is growing rapidly, at the same phase, if workforce is not increasing, then there is a danger. That is how, with this vision to feed that gap, the organization GSV has been established to develop the manforce under the Ministry of Railways. Though we are not rightly focusing on operational workforce, we are working on technical workforce and leadership workforce. Being the new organization, we achieved a lot of targets. Yeah.
So last word for Mr. And then we'll have to.
Sorry. I'll take 1 minute to answer this. I was just like, there's a kind of a dilemma and a contradiction which is there within. On one side, we say AI is going to take away the jobs. On the other side, we have to say that there's a huge amount of unemployment which prevails in the country. And then we further say that the workers who are there, even deployed, have got employment, are lowly paid. And then we further say the lack of workforce. I really can't understand this.
In addition to all these points which have been given, especially the one that integrated execution. So there is no dispute on these issues. But I have one more suggestion, and that is data. A lot of logistic related data still resides in numerous government platforms, and it is lying there, unutilized. Just imagine if I have to, we got this point from a port that, when I need to check the credentials of a driver's license, I have to put in his driver's license number and his date of birth. So can you reduce it to only say driver license number? Somebody who made these two data points as the unique points for checking the license's authenticity would have his reasons. But instead of 2 points being punched in, and if I have to punch in only one, it saves 1 or 2 seconds. But for a very, very congested port which has 8 gates, all 24 hours manned, it might mean 500 to 700 trucks waiting in the line for the whole night. And it is ultimately going to affect the logistic cost. If something was happening in 5 days and it can come down to 4 days. So lots of such data resides in various government systems. And people are coming forward and openly sharing it, especially where no personal information or no trade secrets are involved. So if data can be tapped more, I think we'll be able to save lots in our logistic costs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, thanks for the insights. I am J.K. Bhatti, earlier was with RISE for 35 years. That is a public sector under the Ministry of Railways. My question is to Sri Surinder Aherwal. Sir, in your speech, you have mentioned about economic corridor. Now my question is only on economic corridor. As you are aware that India is planning a link with Middle Eastern and European countries, that is India, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, and then Germany. And this economic corridor will be having both the rail segments as well as shipping corridors, and there will also be the additional burden on the existing DFC corridors. Now my question is, how disruptive technologies will alter the existing established industries, business models, and create new technologies? Thank you.
Let me try to the extent I have understood your question and tell me if I have not understood it well. Yeah, see, IMEC corridor and DFC or our economic corridor, there are two different kinds of economic corridor in a couple of senses. The economic corridor, which we're talking about, the IMEC corridor going through the West Asia into Israel and into Greece and connecting Europe, which was announced in large on the sidelines of G20, there's an economic corridor for international cooperation, right? And it's more than the infrastructure and just not the infrastructure corridor, right? While our DFC and the industrial corridor along the DFC is a infrastructure primarily, infrastructure corridor along which we are having the industrial embellishments, right? To make it a complete economic corridor. So that's what infrastructure come economic activity. And that particular corridor is about economic cooperation among all these countries. Now it also involves infrastructure and primarily rail infrastructure, because when there is a land transit through the countries, it involves physical infrastructure in form of rail or maybe the roadways or inland waterways for that matter. It's being thought about is a conception. It is still at the conception stage, right? How do we go about enhancing the infrastructure all along this corridor, which is called IMEC corridor, including through Saudi Arabia, some rail infrastructures to be developed, and then further going into Israel, where some port infrastructure and the connectivity is to be developed. All those things are now very difficult to imagine, especially in the situation which exists in West Asia today, right? So maybe it's a long shot, but our corridor is a present reality, right? And it only requires further harnessing. And I think we can, and we have the policies, the vision to harness it. And GatiShakti National Master Plan is going to actually catalyze that harnessing of this economic corridor?
My name is S.K. Suvi. Enhancing the capabilities of the corridors. Question for Major General Alawat. Construction of Mumbai-Delhi Industrial Corridor was perhaps started 15 years ago. Has it been completed?
Well, sir, it's about 18 years to be very specific. See, the corridor is not one specific entity. It looks like one entity, it is a one word thing, but there are multiple parks, multiple logistic entities coming up alongside. So it is never going to be complete. The progress will continue, but bulk of this is done. The road part is done, the rail connectivity, the major enablers are already in place, including, I would say, things like OFC or almost every bit of the infrastructure related enablers is in place, but the industrial townships in themselves are still coming up.
Sorry,
If
can I
that
just
makes
interrupt?
We're going to
Sri
build
Ariva needs
8
to leave,
industrial-
so maybe we can just say goodbye. Allow him to leave.